Is Metro 2033 worth playing in 2025? Well, no, not really. Don't get me wrong, it's not a bad game, but I don't think it's necessarily worth going out of your way to play it. Metro 2033 takes place in a post-apocalyptic Moscow, where everyone lives underground in the old metro stations in the aftermath of nuclear war. Stations are being overwhelmed by mutants and monsters that resulted from the radioactive fallout, and your mission is to save your home, fighting the supernatural and the opposing post-war factions along the way. If this premise sounds appealing to you and you're looking for a decent FPS game to play, Metro 2033 isn't a bad choice, but it probably isn't the best one. One of the best things about the game is the atmosphere and the setting. Walking through the metro stations and listening to people chatter around you makes it feel like a living, breathing world that I want to learn more about and spend more time in. Exploring the wasteland outside and encountering various mutants and bad guys alike was equally immersive. This was all probably more effective when the game was first released, but even though it feels a bit dated, I can still appreciate it today. Unfortunately, that's all the good things I really have to say. The game is best when you're left alone to navigate the world presented, but this happens way too infrequently. You're constantly following NPCs around. This ruins the pacing and left me feeling both rushed and bored in different scenarios. It would have been nice to have more open area levels and exploring as well, but everything's pretty small and linear, even when you're not stuck following people. Despite liking some of the dialogue and character moments, I hate when a game makes you just sit and listen to someone talk, and Metro does that constantly. It's cool to have a world filled with real conversations, but in practice it doesn't really work when you have to stop and listen to them one at a time to get any real meaning out of it.
Some kind of invisible way. Right, let me out of the station! And what the hell do you care if I leave or not?
But our friend Artyom was okay. Seems that tunnel
I wonder, why were you the only one unaffected?
Also detracting from the experience were a handful of bugs and glitches. When I started playing, the game kept freezing up and crashing my entire PC until I lowered some graphics settings. Night vision didn't work at all. It wasn't game breaking to not have it, but it probably would have made at least one level more fun to play. Most disappointing was the sound design. Unless I was facing something directly, I couldn't hear it at all.
What are you talking about?
This might have been a hardware issue or something, but there was no audio settings for me to change beyond the volume. I'll say that some of these problems might have fixes out there, but I just didn't bother, and you shouldn't really have to, especially when this is already a remastered version of the game. Then there were a lot of things that I guess I would call a lack of polish. My first thought is that this is dated game design. But 2010 is not that long ago, and plenty of games back then were better than this. For example, many game mechanics are just not explained at all. I think it's clear in the beginning that ammo is also a currency. It took a couple hours of playing until I realized that these were incendiary rounds and could be switched out for normal bullets. Other things like the gas mask filter, changing, and even managing your health are confusing. It prompts you when you're supposed to do both of these things, but otherwise it's unclear how much health I have or what's going on with the gas mask filters. There's a timer, but when I change it, the timer doesn't change. I just didn't really understand what was going on. Playing on normal difficulty, I was able to just ignore these things that didn't really seem that important, but it's still not satisfying to not understand how mechanics work, and if you're going to play at a harder difficulty, I'm assuming that these things would be important to understand. The worst thing by far was one instance when you're supposed to use a lighter to burn through cobwebs that block you from going forward. I thought the game was bugged and had to Google what was happening, finding many other people looking for the same answer. Not only do they never tell you how to use the lighter, but the mechanic of using it to burn cobwebs is never really utilized again except for this and maybe one other instance. Otherwise, they just slow you down and it's not even necessary to burn them. A good game will introduce something like this and then expand on it and use it in clever ways. The lighter and other things in Metro just seem tacked on and almost forgotten about. There's one instance of a sort of physics puzzle where you have to shoot a chandelier so that it drops down and knocks down a door for you to continue. This kind of puzzle is nowhere to be found in the rest of the game. It was another moment I thought the game might be glitched, until I looked up at the ceiling and saw the chandelier flashing yellow. Again, something I don't remember seeing in any of the rest of the game. Despite being a solid FPS, I wish there was a more meaningful variety of weapons and upgrades. There's a revolver, some type of energy gun, shotguns, and assault rifles. These options aren't bad, but it never felt that important or cool to get a new gun or add an attachment to one. Overall, I think Metro 2033 is just okay. And like I said before, not really worth it in 2025 for most people. If you find it on sale, it's a quick 8-hour experience, and there's not much to lose trying it out. But I can't help compare it to some of the best games in the genre, like Half-Life, BioShock, or even some of the Call of Duty campaigns. All of these are more interesting to me and leave more of a lasting impression. I don't think Metro 2033 stands up to these games. and so I wouldn't seek it out unless you have a particular interest in it. I'm assuming Last Light or Exodus are more modern and fleshed out entries in the series, and probably more worth checking out. I intend to play them next and find that out, and I'll let you know what I think. If you want to see my take on the rest of the Metro series and other games in the future, please subscribe, and thanks for watching.